Well, consumers are likely to spend a little more this festive season compared to last year. The latest FNB BER Consumer Confidence Index edged up slightly for the fourth quarter of this year. It's up from -1 index points to a level of 0. But more significantly, consumer confidence is now considerably higher compared to the very low reading of -7 index points recorded during last year's festive season. Now, this suggests that while consumers remain somewhat bearish about the South African economic prospect, a much smaller percentage of consumers now expect the economic situation to worsen over the next 12 months. It also means that more consumers see the environment more conducive to buy durable goods such as furniture. Now, some good news for consumers wanting to get more power to challenge bad services from suppliers. On the cards is a new industry code of conduct which will apply to all suppliers of consumer goods and services. It would make it compulsory for suppliers of consumer goods and services to register with the Consumer Goods and Services Ombudsman. Advocate Neville Melville is the Consumer Goods Services Ombud. He joins me now in studio. Neville, thanks very much indeed for coming in.
It's a pleasure.
All right, so the new code is not signed in yet, but perhaps just give us a summary of what difference it will make to the consumer.
Yes, certainly. Well, it will no longer be voluntary for organisations to belong to the scheme. As it is at present, we have a number of the bigger players involved. In fact, most of the bigger players that you'd find in the high streets. We have one of the cell phone companies, but there's many medium-sized and most of the small-sized businesses don't fall within the scheme. And what that means is that when a consumer comes to us, although we try and assist them, there's no guarantee that the other party is going to cooperate, which is very frustrating for everyone involved.
But now, with this code, of course, they will be compelled if they're on the list.
Yes, so they would have to actually register with us, contribute depending on the size. The very small businesses wouldn't actually have to contribute anything, so there's a degree of cross-subsidisation, but they'd also, most importantly, actually have to cooperate with our processes. So respond to us, give us the information that we need, cooperate when we try and facilitate a settlement and so forth.
Well, I want to gauge the real difference it will make. I mean, recently, it appears that the use of social media has been growing. So a consumer has a problem, he takes to Facebook, he or she takes to Twitter, and you see some differences in terms of the posturing of the retailers or whatever the goods outfit is. So in that sense, is this code a real big game changer?
Yes, well, quite interestingly, a lot of the cases that end up with us have already been through social media. Right. So they get the big splash of fame and glory and then trickle down to us. And unfortunately, it's a lot more difficult at that stage. And I'm not saying that it doesn't help a lot of people up front, but those that aren't successful, there's often a little bit of reluctance on the part of the supplier to further engage with that particular person who's already dragged their name through the mud. So certainly we can't use reputation as a stick any longer. Yeah. And so one has to, I think, be judicious in using social media and be very careful not to be inflammatory and to stick to the facts and, the real issues at hand.
4 or 5 years ago, there was a lot of excitement over the Consumer Protection Act. I mean, for once, consumers felt, well, I can use this, and especially through the National Consumer Commission, to get some success. But it just felt, for some reason, as the years unfolded, that you can't fight the big players. It has to be a difference over the years. And what difference would this make?
Yes, I think certainly as far as the big players are concerned, by and large, they do comply, certainly in our experience. And obviously, they can't control everything right through the system. But when the wheels do fall off, they generally come back and find a resolution. We find quite often they go beyond what's required of them in terms of the Consumer Protection Act. But I think it's the trickle down of that. And there certainly are some big players who are not playing according to the rules. And unfortunately, that's the sort of thing that we'd have to escalate to the National Consumer Commission. And I think they've taken on the role now of actually focusing on these systemic issues. I know they're looking at the timeshare industry, for instance. So they're looking more at industry-wide things rather than my newspaper wasn't delivered yesterday, what are you going to do about it?
Just give me a typical sense of the period of a process that a consumer has to undergo. And let's just talk about duration, because that's important. Often you'll find a consumer lodging a complaint and waiting for months. What sort of process do you follow? Right. How long does it take?
Yeah, we undertake to try and finalise everything within 60 days. We do get some matters that run beyond that, but that's exceptional. Recently, with the new form that you can fill in on the internet, we found that we're getting cases within 10, 15 days, all done and dusted, payment made, delivery, everything, and signed off. So that's certainly the direction that we're heading in.
All right, so just before you go, we've had that number pitching up on the screen. In fact, it's on there now. Is that the best possible way a grieved consumer can actually...
Right, certainly if they want to speak to someone, but the fast track, as I was just mentioning now, if they go onto our website, www.cgso.org.za, and they fill in the form there, it goes straight onto our system, and away it goes.
Advocate Neville Melville, thanks indeed for your time.
It's a pleasure.